A very good afternoon, everyone. Nasiki topic se kugi BEGC 106 popular literature part mo iduni ko. Block 4 genres of popular literature 3 graphic and visual narratives ta. Aduga unit na unit 1 Bimayana experiences of untouchability. So nasiki topic se kari to iduni haba kanda BEGC 106 popular literature ko. Aduga block number 4 genres of popular literature 3 ko graphic and visual narratives aduga unit 1 Vimayana experiences of untouchability auna ngasina we opening haibadare we ahanba lecture oigadorini masigi unit 1 jina ko aduna untouchability haibase yamna important oiba haibadare ko issue amani India do thingari ko matam da ju akoigi Vimayana haibase Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar ko magi maming loroga for example Ramayana Natra Ram Yomin Loro with Lord Ram Yomin Loro Kolgato on the Dumina Mag Yomin Loroga like a map wiki graphic novel habitat and a god wiki published of Ibani Madugi work document and see Negadori on the Magi experiences of untouchability habitat Mana Nagiba as an untouchable part Maze untouchable ni Maze lower caste spot Maze habitat Yamna so we sections of society the habitat society is we section kind of kanda we Ambedkar gi magi caste na ko we dalit ka hai ko when we quality lowest in kanara me so this kanari habitat in some sections of society on the madigi matang da when sina Vimayana ki experience of untouchability ki opening habitat ko lecture ma ni sin na to so let's begin already. Objectives. Examine graphic novel as a genre and trace development of Indian graphic novel and look at Vimayana Experiences of Untouchability 2011 by Sri Vidya Natarajan and S. Anand with illustration by Durgabai and Subhas Vyam. Auna nasigi lecture ji objective se karino haipakanda aikoina graphic novel ji bu genre amoina haibadi yamna unique oiba section amoina haibutare ko aikoigi narratives myam gi marak ko novel ji makan leidana ko prose the poetry family minor novel mark jo aikoigi Bildungsroman kind lay ko the graphic novel and like graphic novels are relatively newer habitat compared to other formats of the novel the graphic novel ki genre ja pin kupna nei naraga ko aduga Indian graphic novel ki horokam kadai dagi pin yengbi ai ko development kadai da pin ko pangi ko le habdo machine ne ga duri ne ko aduga kara kupna mo pin ngasi focus of je Vimayana hariba graphic novel ja 2011 da published to giba Vimayana Experiences of Untouchability hariba novel je kanani bano Sri Vidya Natarajan amasung S Anand ibani aduga illustration na haibadi graphic novel haraga di illustration me amom yawgani ko illustration singjina Durgabai amasung Subhas Vyam haibasina tobani ko sida moigi unique oiba artwork unique oiba akoigi novel graphic novel di oiba but graphic novel ki format follow to yawi to do yawi maina hairagi ko na unique oi je kari no atop graphic novel kai dikhne haibadi yamna popular oiba graphic novel atop lei ko akoigi worldwide famous oiba akoigi mouse kind of lei ko akoigi art skill nam ge adugum maduga kai dikhne comic taga moi kai khne na traffic comic book service ko lo nang enjoy to ba when ga angang oi ringe yamna park ko na graphic novel kai dikhne moi format se kamaina kai difference lei ge ko ke habdo pinang si ne ga do rim ne ko aduna graphic novel se India da Indian graphic novels kada dia horot bano ko kana pioneer oi bano ko bano have to nainaraga graphic novel quite important oi habitat ko Indian graphic novels sa Vimayana Experiences of Untouchability je mun study tawraga when analyze to dunia ko auna kana ni bano Sri Vidya Natarajan hariba amasung S Anand jina ibani aduga illustration na habadi lai ye buduna Durgabai amasung Subhas Vyam so let's begin. So, introduction. Ambedkar, chiefly remembered as architect of Constitution of India, but equally important is his contribution in shaping Dalit movement. Oh, na ako na yes, kangi ko. Ambedkar have to say, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar kuni ako na refer to say, Constitution of India ibakanda or frame to bakanda harage ko. Mana so but hobang lowi. Mana head ne have tare. We framework to ba adu committee dugi. Auna maje architect of Constitution India ha ninjangi adu bo magi adu maine important oiba. Amagazu ko have the as important as that job have tare ko. My contributions kay no bakanda Dalit movement India da Dalit movement gi wave ama chauna la ki se PR Ambedkar na so but hobang lobo dagi. Abadi Dalit movement abadi kisnate. Ekoi Indian society se ko matamduda haibatare and even now to a certain extent ko ye mukanda casteist of society casteist of haragati ekoi caste na ekoi standard of life haibatare ekoi ijat ekoi dignity haibatare ko ekoi respect decide those ekoi merit na taba ekoi quality na taba just ekoi na karamba imung da pui habagi ko karamba caste pui habaduna ekoi life say decide to bu ekoi casteist of society amagi kaheta chana bi amani ko ona his academic accomplishment remained unparalleled habdi magi academic achievement so we am mayam like ko his speeches and writings and expression of his intelligence rationality and articulate arguments ona mana mamsa lawyer jo rami adu professor jo rami ko law professor na mana yamna well read of the family Dr. B.R. Ambedkar je ona mana India gi ahan law minister go na potun to gi ko ona magi speeches and writings mem je pa bakanda magi struggles haibatare ko mana phangiba pham haigadra mana yokiba position sindu yomna honna bada to kimati kyamna wagi ko gi bin udunga mem Valerian Rodriguez remarks that in public life Ambedkar was observed in several roles as scholar, teacher, lawyer, parliamentarian, administrator, journalist, publicist, negotiator, agitationist, leader, and devotee. Ona Ambedkar na role mayam ma play to rami habi mo ko haning isa habidi yes ma oza ju rami kuigi Bombay Law College ki ko lawyer ju rami parliamentarian ko ma je law minister rami ni administration ju rami then habidi acho cho but tang mayam ma lo rami habi wani ado magi upbringing habatare ko mana angang oi ngai matam gi mana thina giba challenges myam as a person who belong to the lower class habatare ko adu gi challenges myam go kuina study to raga hojik fawda caste system gi relevance habatare ko hojik fawda caste system gi issues hai India da lai ham do masigi novels na masigi graphic novels na kuina uttoi ne aduna akoina complaint myam like reservation pai patte ko adu gi matang da Ambedkar gi life story ji yeng rakanta hujing matam bo da equina dum miyo bising se in some sections of society have gi wan loina makta judge the we call have kitang lang gani adugo koi every single day kuna pau da kai da ba dum lower class mi sing je upper class na warak tiba kubi ba sipi da ba andani bi bagi instances dum thing ko every single day koi chocolate hare du ko na sugum myam ji against Ambedkar na matam du da yam na one fight to jeremy ko on upliftment gi damakta habatare kugi Dalit kangu habit untouchable hariba kangu singjibu mana uplift over yam kan hona jerami reservation te ga pi na ko na magi struggles magi challenges mana thina gi ba awaw me am matang ko ni si khara tentak na habatare ko na do webs life and times of B.R. Ambedkar yeng ji ko da Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, born in 1891 to Bhimabai and Ramji Sampal Ilmo, Madhya Pradesh, where father worked as headmaster in army school of the Mapana headmaster. After Ambedkar was born, his father retired and family moved to Napoli. Ambedkar po matung da may apa retired tawre, kasi manaw yam bani ko, para hen do kunto ko exactly kawre. Aduga family moved to Napoli. Napoli haripa Ambedkar attended English school at Satara in 1900. In 1900, Ambedkar's school tamba hore Satara English school. Ambedkar given last name by Brahmin teacher at camp school who was fond of him. Ambedkar yung musical. Magi Mabu si Java Brahmin teacher na Mabu yam na Thagatpiba mabu fazana guide taubiba oza ama yaminga thumbikhibneba. Ambedkar forced to sit separately from his classmates due to observances of caste separation. Auna maje classroom da pamba kanda topa wari mayam ju ju taramani college taramani anecdotes kuma kai mayam. Atopa magi classmates na table chokri da pamalaga mana makhada bora thari mo da have tare ko my classroom da awan ba na praga kar labna corner da have tare ko mayam ga mainstream da pusala da have tare ko ko sa auna maje tongan tahan yamna dehumanizing have word scenery ko habidi miyoiba amagi ijat miyoiba amagi respect miyoiba amagi dignity bu yamna hawas habida ba have tare ko nơi mong ubang ngam masise yamna angang wina bekarna school guarding it school tamba hogulapda sigi awabu mana thingna grabane habidi ma bu sipidaba ma bu mi wina bidaba habitare ko ozana ju magi classmate na ju ko everyone around him ma che dum untouchable ni habito magi even nuju dum paramani ko matam duda untouchable amagi even his shadow magi mami habitare ko aduna kuigi Brahmin amada mamiduna tawe kalasneko. If his shadow lands on a Brahmin, habitat landed on a Brahmin do use the via the idea of talito or untouchable to JB to not compete and not compete on a Tokyo. I mean, a documented Neo Bamana, Neo Bamas, Andana Yemudo, a bit of on the Ambekar Masamung the Zoo experience, mana first hand experience or Masita Managa, Sing coming mana, Sing Taket Uganda. Atop mayam thandaba habidi man ising thakung thenguragadi mangani kolani na mi ama ngairaga mi amduna ga ising nai mutaga haibiraga habidi madi untouchable ni ko magutu da hayal laga kolaga managa mi haibidragadi madi thakpa yadaba kaina ga yamna again dehumanizing word scenery ko in 1904 families shifted to Bombay to enable children to receive better education na Bombay da honge 1904 da ko du mo jai khara academy masa sing ko wi Bima Bai amasung Ramji Sakpa gi masa sing na like president tamba punda bai na Mumbai dong honge. He is considered to be the second person from the Mahar community to have matriculated in 1907. On naman Anisuba Mahar hari community ja Sepogi community ja sidagi mana Anisuba ne metric pass to 1907. I believe matamdu di metric pawo tamba metric pass to ba kai pang ko ba do mani ko jing matamdu di metric application na tego ten na ta class 10 kai se graduate education na ta like tam ko pa but matam 1907 daga metric the plate of gamba has said the kimatic yamna lai yam tan honobam ta ta ko madu Ambedkar gi academic excellence se puina masi is the instance na han boi u pangem ko har di lai di yamna focus over academia di yamna pam do pa ne Maharaja of Baroda provided Ambedkar with financial assistance to enable him to join Elphinstone College. Maharaja of Baroda financed his higher education, which enabled Ambedkar to attend Columbia University from 1913 to 1916. His first publication, Caste in India, Their Mechanism, Genesis and Development, was an outcome of his studies there. He earned his master's degree in 1915. In 1916, he enrolled for bar course at Gray's Inn, but had to return to India due to paucity of funds. In 1917, he returned to Baroda to work as the military secretary to the Maharaja of Baroda for granting him financial aid. Sina magi academic career ni ko. So, maje Ambedkar je magi family di pisalu le jidam ko Maharaja of Baroda na maje like tamna ba Columbia da thabigi aduga Columbia 1913 to 1916 bu tamagi ko master degree 1915 da phangi aduga 1916 da ma bar course ki Grace in the tamna ko na ki but pisagi achin bale pana ha bitare ko positi ha ga ko pisagi wa pale ko na ma hala kidabya di India da ko aduga hala matung da 1917 da military secretary on the Maji Tabato Bahoki, Maharaja of Baroda, Marking of Kanda, Maharaja of Baroda, the moment the Mating Pump became the cop, we call it a mana book, repeat of Nova Habitat, Mating people. From 1918 to 1920, he taught at the Sydenham College of Commerce in Bombay. In 1920, he started a newspaper, Muk Nayak, the leader of the voiceless. The same year, he went to London and attended London School of Economics and Political Science. His MSc thesis titled Provincial Decentralization of Imperial Finance in British India, and the Doctor of Science thesis was titled The Problem of the Rupee. He returned to India and worked as a lawyer in the Bombay High Court and taught at Butley Boys Accountancy Training Institute and at Government Law College. So, my career to Nico. Maja journalism in the Mana cover the leader of the voiceless guy London the 1920 the London School of Economics and Political Science Magi MSc thesis Provincial Decentralization of Imperial Finance in British India. My Doctor of Science is the problem of the rupee is India Halaga Ukilamo Bombay High Court of Pure Aduga Butley Boys Accountancy Training Institute also in the Purami Aduga Government Law College also in Purami. Ambedkar, founded by his Krit Hitkarni Sabha in 1924, his PhD thesis, The Evolution of Provincial Finance, published in 1925. In 1930, he was elected President of All India Depressed Classes Congress and started journal Janata. In 1932, a separate electorate was granted to untouchables, but Gandhi proceeded to pass unto death, resulting in Pune Pact, which mentioned a joint electorate with reservation for depressed classes. So, mana separate electorate now the 1932 the Pangi, Adubu Gandhi now Magi fast unto death of you, the Gidi Pune Pact, Avianaba Poraga, Kaitoki Abakanda, electorate have the voting to the joint Adubu reservation for depressed classes in Pangi Baina, Adu Yana Kiba. Ambedkar appointed principal of Government Law College, Bombay in 1935 and remained there for 2 years. So, Government Law College, Bombay, principal in Sahiani Puki. Became first law minister for 1947 India independence from 1951 and chairman of drafting committee of Indian Constitution. Chairman of architect we have to head chairman of the drafting committee Indian Constitution. Ambedkar acknowledged Buddha, Mahatma Phule, and Sant Kabir Abakti Magi Osa Gita to Magi inspiration. The three of them were his three gurus. So, Namana Guru of Woman have to Buddha, Buddha, Mahatma Phule, Amasum Sant Kabir. It was during 1950s that he was decisively drawn towards Buddhism and his practices, and along with thousands of his followers converted to Buddhism on 14 October 1956 in Nagpur. Ambedkar died in 1957. Namana Buddhism the Yamna 1950s have Buddhist teaching the Kaitamani, Hawaii of the study the Bogi, Aduga, Magi follower, Sing Kamagapa, Donana, Mana, Buddhism, and the Masamang Buddhist Ogi, 14 October 1956. Adubu Matan Sahida, 1957, Ambedkar, Lakite, Queen Namaze, Kata Buddhist in the Hingham record, who might mind to graphic novels to graphic narratives. Described by Eddie Campbell as, first, it is used simply as a synonym for comic books. Second, it is used to classify a format, for example, a bound book of comics, either in soft or hardcover, in contrast to the old-fashioned staple comic magazine. Third, it means, more specifically, a comic book narrative that is equivalent in form and dimensions to the prose novel. Finally, others employ it to indicate a form that is more than a comic book in the scope of its ambition, indeed, a new medium altogether. On Eddie Campbell high graphic novel first, it is used simply as a synonym for comic books. So now, the comic books graphic novel is sub money in the Kanara or except everyone. Second, it is used to classify a format ANOVA. For example, format a bound book of comics, either in soft or hardcover. On the soft cover, not hardcover, bound to have the punjan but in contrast to the old-fashioned staple comic magazine. The comic magazine has the Third, it means more specifically a comic book narrative that is equivalent in form and dimensions to the prose novel. Comic book की type दी इबा but form and dimensions दी अखोई prose novel की level दी होगा अदुबु अखोई ना graphic novel normal होगा अदुगा finally others employ it to indicate a form that is more than a comic book in the scope of its ambition. Indeed, a new medium altogether, an unknown medium ama haibadi comic ka ju khenai novel ka ju khenai ko masagi unique oizaba mawong amani or form amani na last exit of you. Lila Christensen states, in contrast to superhero comic books, graphic novels are more serious, often non-fiction, full-length, sequential art novels that explore the issues of race, social justice, global conflict, and war with intelligence and humor. Comic ka kay dikena gap, the comic book ka graphic novel kay dikena gap ka pa. Graphic novels in the serious will be heli have the topic na tra theme gum da ko. Non-fiction ogali comic hire ka di ekwi Superman, tra Batman na to ko pa, we superhero movie to. Adu kene ko. Full length oi have the maje complete work by itself ogido buni ko. Sequential art novels that explore the issues of kay issues of inaba race, social justice, global conflict, and war with intelligence and humor. The intelligence ka humor ka ju yamna achoba factors of the we graphic novel. So comical graphic novel is a Canadian to we Eddie Campbell da Lila Christensen da icon. Visual images can have multiple and layered meanings. It makes reading graphic novels a deeply engaging experience as act of decoding explicit and implicit are carried out simultaneously. Prominent graphic novels include Art Spiegelman's Mouse, Marjane Satrapi's Persepolis, Joe Sacco's Palestine, and Ho Chi Anderson's King. Ano si miyam jini ko. Kaya maming chatpa graphic novels hire gadi ekwi Art Spiegelman's ki Mouse lere, Marjane Satrapi ki Persepolis lere, Joe Sacco ki Palestine lere, amasung Ho Chi Anderson ki King lere. Graphic narrative as a descriptor and level references both visual component of medium, the graphic as crafting of a story, the narrative. The term graphic narrative does not limit attention only to form, but also entwines manner of unfolding story, and that is how the evolution of the larger level of comics to the specific and yet encompassing term for graphic narrative has happened as genre developed. Graphic level is a visual component of medium job crafting a story have the worry masagatu in the narrative cover. Graphic narratives have in the logo when you have the graphic novel having or graphic novels graphic narratives in some machine of all. Indian graphic narratives. 1960s and 70s witnessed large-scale production of comics in India. India do comics se America no na te ko India do chauna comic production je thingnabui. Amar Chitrakatha regarded as among first and most prominent of genre. On Amar Chitrakatha jina paidgi maming chatpa ko paidgi ihan han ba haiba tare paidgi maming leiba genre ji graphic narrative ne lawe. During last decade, appeal of comics from joyful reading has transformed into thought-provoking exercises, as suggested by Nandini Chandra in The Fear of Iconoclasm, Genre and Medium Transformation from Comic to Graphic Novels in Amar Chitra Katha, Bimayana, and Munmu. Auna, akwegi hanadi comic sing habitat joyful reading the ayam of the Soromado. Kaido Onjalagi Habakanda, thought-provoking exercises. Habidi, Wakanyam Kalamba Miki, Samaski, social consciousness habitat. Ingatan Bakulan ba or the view in a focus over in the layer, or the in the focus over or then the mind on the layer habitat, and the quick yaki, enjoyment ging ha no nova, wine of enjoy to Nubacalam, but objective, Wakan Kanan about play. Moreover, relationship of history with graphic narratives, both in terms of form and content, also lends a degree of seriousness to the genre, thereby, in a sense, differentiating it from comics. On a relationship of history with graphic narratives, both in terms of form and content. Form the content that you can make on a degree of seriousness haragadi comic ni nang hana khanaramdo hujikti adu khanar krep ona serious obi hele ona equity graphic narrative ne na serious oiba habadi hele lumba ko habadi topic natraga subject natraga lumba to angel ona comics agi am kene ona so relationship with history with graphic narrative and history ki role jo achoba role ma jo play tawi ona comics kumba kuina nga ta ngang sin na ngang ki habata na ko duni ana enjoyment ke hum ko du graphic narrative mark ta ya ma chobu gap ma pin u pange. Graphic narratives draw our attention to not only alternate versions of history, but also to how that history is represented and how it can be represented. Interestingly, graphic narratives often present the narrative as oral recollections that merge words and images as observed by Pramod K. Nair. Economic liberalization has enabled publishing of Indian graphic narratives. The circuits of production, marketing, and distribution of books, advent of literature festival, and easier availability of printed materials has also lent to its recent popularity. Now, economic liberalization lakpadagi habata India da graphic narratives kumba kai gumba gi popularity hen hinga pa okoi ubanga me hinga to. Already circuits of production gumba, marketing and distribution of books gumba, already literature festival akoi book fair dagi kai dagi ko mayam ama lakpadai easier availability of printed materials. Na printed materials in je pongdarak pa iralai na pangba horpadagi di akoi na graphic narrative singi popularity se India da aduki matik angle ko se apne notice to banga me have never so economic liberalization sisu achauba factor natraga role amani we India da graphic narrative sing se yamna important or natraga powerful or jida Vimayana as a graphic narrative. As S. Anand argues, book seeks to enlighten non-Dalits and privileged castes to open their eyes and minds to caste oppression. Apart from being a wake-up call on caste prejudices and hence a pedagogical tool, Goan art illustrations enable complete transformation of Vimayana. Graphic novels usually follow a pattern of sequential art. However, in Vimayana, sequential art is done with. The panels are not rigidly demarcated. They flow, conveying a sense of rhythmic movement of time, the ways in which Goan worldview is imagined and expressed. It also enables a visual scanning of multiple instances. So, S Anand hai ko Vimayana gi role je Vimayana pamiba mana perform to iba role je kain haba kanda non dalits amasung privileged caste sing japa koi gi caste operation gi matang da hai badi akoi na di or kai tare privileged caste na traga non dalits na di caste oppress or mi sing je kari punchi mahing hingi na tra kamaina moi gi day to day life se kamaina tawi kholi hai bato akoi na live experience sungom ngor ko akoi na moi je sumaina hingbani sumaina tobani si awaba thinabani have se pabadi ai ko kuna para ko la thinabi ai adu bo kuna di moigi day to day life se kamai to chano ko khangaro ko auna masigi graphic novel gi magi kari ro or kari function do play to na ba kanda koi bu enlighten to na have tare ko non dalit samasung privileged classes in zu enlighten to roga o siniko dalit singna na traga untouchable sing the thingari ba awaba sing je on an everyday basis have to apart from being a wake-up call on caste prejudices and hence a pedagogical tool, I believe talk pagi ko, we want talk pagi tool go on art form scenery je ko, we yam common no ba cartoon ki type ta comic ki type scenery ko, go on art scenery, go on haraga di ki tribe makalam ko, the prejudice ko art scenery enables complete transformation of Vimayana. Graphic novels usually follow a pattern of sequential art. Sequential art है कि कोई box चल रहा है, demarcation गुम्बल ले रहा है, मतंग page by page, section by section लागतो. Vimayana द याव देव. Vimayana की art form जो यामना flow नाइब है कि तरको यामना free flow नाइब मा अधी मोंडले. The panels are not rigidly demarcated on the Kaido protocol. Section Kaido protocol. They flow, conveying a sense of rhythmic movement of time and the ways in which Goan worldview is imagined and expressed. On the Goan worldview, combine expressed we have to give Mondo, the style, Matu Kamaga, Vivayana gi Warisisu, Goan art form of the Kutpunya. It also enables a visual scanning of multiple instances. Oh, now, Amutanda. Multiple instances मैम अखोई section यामना rigid ओइना खाइदोक्राबनिना हाइबा तारेको art form दो अमदगी page अमदा overflow तो इमोंग दा अखोइदो उल्लबनिना अखोइना अमुतंग पाबो कांदा अखोइना section मरी मंगा पुहारगिनेको or area अखोइना encompass तो बुंगमेको मदगी format. The title suggests a narration of Bhim's life, just as Ramayana narrates life of Rama. Lord Rama ki mai punchi waise Ramayana da ibudumana Bhim ki punchi se ko Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar ki punchi se koina Ramayana do. Ramayana is based on text Ambedkar autobiographical notes. Ko magi lyric Ambedkar autobiographical notes yaw ko masana isaram hai bataya ko indicating that storyboard is intended to be faithful to original. Ona storyboard to yang original dagi thidok ta ba hai bataya ko faithful or ba ga follow to. Mahat Satyagraha, Ambedkar's Gandhi debate, and conversion to Buddhism had been incorporated to give a sense of completion. Now, akhuna like sida thinari se ko Vimayana thinari se kai no kanda Mahat Satyagraha ne ising thakpagi Satyagraha movement ne ko Ambedkar ga Gandhi gi debate ne haibadi separate electoral ki matang da voting ki matang to ne aduga conversion to Buddhism na Ambedkar last Buddhist on gi ko 1956 on gi to sinore. As a biography, graphic representation of selected events in the life of an individual focuses on the struggles against oppression, on oppression against the struggle to give the individual amana technical magi challenges myam have tare. The word graphic here implies the visual aspects of the chosen medium and also a detailed description of caste-based discrimination. On the graphic hierarchy, ani thona lobi hai ko pin meaning sa. Aham badana ko graphic novel ki graphic and ayek pa light yaw Anishbugi graphic or yamna extreme yamna kehetare detail or graphic or caste based discrimination yamna without any flowery language, without any rose tinted glasses directly as real as it gets in graphic term dual meaning and PD. Events and their experiences are not limited to an individual but extend to a disenfranchised community. On the events the yaw myam je Ambedkar dadang da habitat ko magi wari ni mama to thina gibani awa se mon challenges in thina gibani have not table magi own family magi community have the untouchables in the community to autonomy thina gibi Ambedkar na thinari ba or thina kiba awa ba challenges myam je untouchable atopun loya thina giba ngakne ko on this franchise community amagi challenges awa ba myam events or experience myam to Sigi likes the thing about Pandari. The relation between historical conditions and life of individual is pro. Historical condition duga aduna individual punjida kari effect of links experiences are recounted through memory burdened by the inheritance of caste discrimination. experiences the Ambedkar gi haba tare as well as disenfranchised community gi experiences singje memory do kai dagi inheritance of caste discrimination mogi mamang mamang da lera ma chana bi to ko yam phatta ba haba tare yamna human dignity bu mat ko gi chana bi ko discrimination ko ngam Bimayana can be read as an alternate history acknowledging Ambedkar's constant struggles against caste and untouchability caste amasung untouchability gi ko matangda kuina alternate history mo ina ju pa bi ai Ambedkar gi tang na tap pa wherein caste is a part of the contemporary discourse. Dialogues, written statements, thoughts, headlines, multiplicity of expressions does not give prominence or primacy to any single mode, but seeks to incorporate all voices as equally important. Once the dialogue, the written statement, the thoughts, headlines, equally important. Having looked at cover design debates that are taken up in Vimena, it would be pertinent to spend a little time examining detailing of Gone art. On a Gone art key format, the graphic novels, yellow panina habitat illustration, the Gone art key, Mong the yellow panina, Gone art key, we get idea with the kata. Gone art. Goans regarded as one of the largest tribal groups in South Asia, tribal groups. Their presence is noted in Deccan Peninsula and mainly in Madhya Pradesh region of Central India. Central India ki Madhya Pradesh amasung Deccan Peninsula da moje taba habitare ko moje lay thing. Within Gond community, Pardhans have a special status and responsibility as they are repositories of wisdom and beliefs of Gond community, maintained through their oral culture of folk songs and folk tales. Ona Gond gi maraktazu community ma Pardhan sai je ko moi ya achoba natroke special status aba pi kari status na ba kanda moina repositories har gadi that reservoir ga have ko collection to moina ko wisdom amasung Gond community ki beliefs singi moina repository uduni adu kari na maintain tawi oral culture of folk songs and folk tales myam li bo ko orally habitare ko amadagi generation after generation ko lo ki to auna sida Gond gi marak jo Pardhan singjina achoba role on play to ko moi ki Gond gi uniqueness sai ga Gond the cultural heritage but with passage of time performances and resulting means of support are on decline dubu matamna porakpa ahung na maram oiraga performances in komagi folk song performance folk tale performance in je decline tore aduga support su lekta na komagi decline tore Udian Baspai notes Pardhans have been the priests storytellers and musicians of the Gonds. In a way, they have been the carrier of the collective memory of the Gond tribal communities. They did not till land or rear animals. Every third year, the Pardhans would go to the family of their Gond patron. Every Pardhan family had a number of Gond families as their patrons. So now, Pardhan ki mugi section of the Gond society have a Pardhan sing jami mathau ji kai na kanda storyteller oiba priest oiba amasung musician oiba ne ko moidi farmer oide moidi sanga yokte ko moi mathau do natte moina mu tongan ba unique we ba matho ma pangthui ko moina kaita folk song folk tales kuma oral culture do moina naina ba ko moina collect ba mulhan na bu khona ba ko mang na khona ba ko ona priest oi ba storytellers oi ba musicians oi ba adu mu chana bi ona every third year say yung kudingi ko the Pardhans would go to the family of their Gond patron ha ga di moi bu chana bi ba moi bu thakpi ri ba ha ba tare ko higher kin du wa sinar ko the patron mi chalaga moina moi gi ka tare every Pardhan family had a number of Gond families as their patron. Amatang nate ko mga ubi tara ubi ko mo na ngamjaba mo gi Pardhan singuna performance ko api ko taro ko ai bili mo memory mo collective memory mo bador ko record tum da thok to Pardhans na Gond gi community gi damata mo na pangfe Pardhan Gonds credited with tasks of carrying on narratives of family history, genealogies, legends, truth, folk tales. Ona mo gi mathoji kaino hai bakanda carrying on narratives ko family histories in record thamba genealogy record thamba ko aduga legends sai tare mo wari ko myths and legends in jibu moina mahan na ko folk songs da mo onthoga isai du sak ko pani mo tahan ko lam ko adu do ko gi Pardhan Gond singi mathau ne mo gi role ne have tare ko Gond community da mo na play to role. A new turn further added when Jangar Singh Shyam's Panchan for paintings was discovered and gained international recognition. He belonged to Patangarh and inspired scores of artists to follow in his footsteps. This school of art has been named Jangar Kalam. Auna sida Jangar Singh Shyam jina mana painting gi ko no ba international recognition phangpa magi painting style do ko na Patangarh da gi ni ma se aduga art form jano ba school of art ma huki ko jangar kalam hari ba si style have tare ko si art form jita. Udian Baspai says, it won't be an exaggeration to say that this school of art, initiated by Jangar, is nothing but painted narrative song. Now the deities were waking up in color, throbbing in lines, and went peering through dots. The stories, instead of finding expression through song, were manifesting themselves now on canvas. The oral quality is reflected in dots, dashes, and curvatures of images. Baspai at the same time, as it is a new form of the narrative, it is a song to give the old form music. Ona akoigi music kumba kai kumba the oral narrative ta leirambado amo anova format ama haiba tare anova medium da lakheba si medium se karino painting da artwork da haiba tare ko ona sida jangar gisina Jangar Singh Siam magi artwork sina akoigi gon community gi moigi history moigi narrative moigi folktale folk song ma'am si mana amu anova kahada medium do tore madugi medium na artwork se uti. The nightlife of trees depict centrality of trees in Goan beliefs, both as a life force and one that provides shade, food, and sustains life. In an interview, S. Anand says, this kind of art, which is not realistic but suggestive and conceptual, could be used for the purpose of a graphic novel. Graphic novel ki tarata Goan ki art form ja hai batare ko. Akoigi Jangar ki art form hai batare Jangar ka lam hai se ko. Siki se graphic novel ko beye ko yani hai ki idea ama sagat krebo. Durgabai and Subhas Vyamstead, our art is khula, open, where there is space for all to breathe. This idea of open spaces as liberating and free defines Goan art as depicted in the Vimayana. There are three distinct kinds of speech bubbles used in Vimayana. The bird-shaped one to convey soft speech of characters targeted by caste prejudices. Sting-shaped ones carry sharp, venomous words used by characters that follow caste distinctions. And thought bubble attaches to sketches of eyes signifying perception, not express. Speech bubbles ko akoigi Vimayana uba phangi bird shape na soft speech sting shape na sharp venomous words ko aduga thought bubble duna ko akoigi attaches to sketches of eyes mid man duna ko kari sini aduna kari define to ino to kari ta ino aba kana perception not express haidi haiduk to ko perceive to ko ni mo ta ona makan thongna thought bubble yawi or speech bubble yawi sorry ko the bird shapes na soft speech sting shapes na venomous words aduga thought bubble na sketches of eyes mid ki type shape to na perception ko. Digna pattern illustration use one Digna pattern in Vimayana to suggest pace break. On the pace amaga logi the kept ko Digna pattern na level. The Digna was originally used to design patterns on walls and floors of Goan homes and was considered auspicious. On the Digna je hana kala the sinar ge have kanda wall amasung floors in the Goan home sinda sinar me auspicious or bahar the good omen have the my way in the same pattern is used in Vimayana to carve divisions on paces, as tubular shapes not only form divisions on paces but also become pathways and streets, vehicles moving along those streets along with animals and birds. In Vimayana, the Digna pattern replaces the place margin, maybe indicating the earlier marginalized state of the Dalits, now moving towards the center, is Chandra's observation. Now, a graphic narrative pace margin singje exist tawi adubu Vimayana the pace margin ki mohta Digna pattern and tawe kari symbolize so in have kanda hana dalit singje marginalized oramba have nakan the section of the thamamba info thamamba the ono ji center da sang ko mane express tawe One Day, discussing caste. The book opens with a short preview titled One Day. The time is mentioned as a day in the recent past. The unspecific time and location is indicative of commonplace discussion about caste in the contemporary urban setting. Hujing matamda mi amaga dum makui caste ki matang da debate to ba wari sana padi matang de ulis ko hor pada. Ambedkar's life narrated through story of Mahar community representing how Dalits were forced to live across India. Eleanor Jeliot states that the traditional role of the Mahar caste was that of village servant. Village servant of the role. Every village, almost without exception, in the Marathi-speaking area of West Central India, had its Mahar quarters. Mahars had no special skill or craft, but performed necessary duties for the village as sportsmen, wall menders, street sweepers, removers of cattle carcasses, caretakers of the burning ground, and servant of any passing government official. On the Mahars in Jamugi, si Namugi skill or area ni happy like special skill of craft like that. Adu mo na tawda perform tawda ba action singje village ki watchman or bugumba wall kara kanda wall do mention the person bugumba street sweeper or wise bugumba removers of cattle carcasses at asiba jiba gumba lapto ko bugumba caretakers of the burning ground hai di mention to ko ki jaga do mo na sem do saramba ka ta ra ko mo na asena ba ko aduga servants of any passing government official na passing government officers in minai ko hai la kan mo ki village ko tai ko la kan da mo na seba to dunia ko ki mahar community jin ko water examines plight of Dalits who are denied access to common water sources. The first incident represented is when Ambedkar is compelled to sit away from his classmates in school. Idealized image of teacher is demolished as he laments that British government have allowed untouchables into schools without taking into account traditional belief. Now, Ambedkar na satra oring ito po. Usa sing nagazu Ambedkar gumba untouchables sing sa school da kahan bada mo na pamjade sawninge po. Kari ki Britishers sing na untouchables jibu pigi touchables mangi or high class singa same class of family kay no kind of usa sing bukta du bukta usa sing bukta have that ko educated orient khali bosa pauda yamna narrow minded week on 19 March 1927 Ambedkar decided that Mahars had to march towards Saudar Tank to claim their right to accessing water. As leaders drank water from tank, there it was rumored that they would now enter Bireshwar temple. A riot broke out in which several Dalits were attacked by caste Hindus. Police investigation conducted and 5 caste Hindus were sentenced to imprisonment for 4 months, and a purification rite was performed at Saudar Tank. So the Mahar Satyagraha to the court. Khana buko pamoina Bireshwar temple sang to have a rumor amatar the gidi Hindu singuna Mahar sing khana gi aduga khana buka da 5 caste Hindus mga ama jail tha mari kham gi ko mo hadi khana buka pa ko gi aduga purification rite na pa to ki have the mangam ne singduk na ba having mo ko please connect kula toroka aduga to gi. This event is culturally evoked and celebrated in Dalit movements and is depicted through images of Ambedkar's inspirational words as water sprinklers, quenching thirst of masses suppressed for centuries. Fish images are used abundantly. The tank is encircled by a fist while the water is accessed by hands. The French Revolution is referred to as a precedent for challenging feudalistic structure. The French Revolution, the feudal system, ancient regime, the challenge Mahar Satyagraha. The facing page carries a news article of April 2008, a grim reminder of contemporary reality, firmly juxtaposing Mahar Satyagraha with continuing discriminations and vengeful violence by caste Hindus. The illustration is of the Sakwara village incident near Jaipur, where the bearers were punished with social boycott for defying tradition and using the local phone. Sahi chama yung mga toki do 2008 to April 2008 to ko sugo manaba incident ma toki of the kari to no have kanda Sakwara incident to ko village incident ni Jaipur manata by words in Japanese to be social boycott to be ko kari no have kanda mo na local phone do season ro I believe even almost 100 years later we caste ki ko we untouchability ki issue lay yu ha It is 1918 shelter section ginisina and Ambedkar is headed to Baroda on a train from Bombay. The constant concern on his mind is a place to stay as hotels allowed only upper caste members. Ambedkar finds an old Parsi inn which he believes would give him room as the religion does not practice caste and untouchability. When he identifies himself as Hindu, he is told to vacate the room. On a shelter na mo mana sagjabam phangidap to Ambedkar na sagjabam phangidap matang du pa mana Baroda da lakpa Bombay dagi train to mo pa 1918 da on my wakanda ai je kadai da lei duino kadai da leka duino na tra ko on da leka ya ma matha sagi mo ko on na Parsi ai bid Hindu da Parsi gi nam sang na on da mana Hindu ne haru dagi mazile en ya han ki te Since there was no customers, they arrived at a compromise that Ambedkar would provide a Parsi name for the register. Ambedkar je masagi identity bu bolhan gi ma Parsi name. In office, files are thrown at him, not handed over or placed at his desk, and eventually he is confronted by a group of stick-wielding Parsis threatening to beat him up for polluting the inn. He is forced to leave the inn. Parsigar na man muina Ambedkar na mu indo molan dore ko changrabam man hotel do molan dore kolan dore habagi onda ki halakpa kolan ma threaten tor kolan ko ma thing gi. Ambedkar traveling in a bus with political workers in 1934. Narrative turns to Ambedkar-Gandhi debate, argued that Gandhi's foremost priority was to fight for freedom from British. Ambedkar urged for transforming Hindu society. They disagreed on the need for separate electorates. Ambedkar was chair of drafting committee of constitution, and Gandhi wrote a letter to the British officials expressing his belief that the untouchable could not judge their concerns. Ambedkar Gandhi Ambedkar's well-known and significant statements are arranged as branches of a tree, a crucial life-giving force. In his writings on conversion, he says that untouchability was a Hindu practice and conversion could help Dalits gain dignity. The two individuals, having completed the discussion, bid adieu to each other. The one who was previously ignorant of caste now professes his respect for Ambedkar and concludes with Jai Bhim. Ambedkar na pamjina Hindu society ji bu transform tawba pahana le me ba untouchability bu ga yu loina mak koi musal ko pam ko na drafting committee da ona Gandhi na mu mamani ki marakta separate electorates ki matang da yana ki dabam le ki ko Gandhi no separate electorate pam de reservation di pam ko reservation na grant to ki Ambedkar na club separate electorate pam ki ko na sida wari resolution makanda Jai Bhim maina nimak na ki wari sanarami bu ko amu ju convince tawraga caste ki matang da ki caste discrimination have say yamna current oiba have tare ko ju ju sathariba issue amani have to animagna accept to ki madu asamam torjika. So, Ambedkar gi magi bimayana jadi orje Ambedkar gi magi struggle singdugu with the graphic narrative ki format ta with utuni ko maze bima bai amasung Ramji Sakpal gi masan pani magi father army school gi headmaster mo irami aduga maze school tam ko pada tongana separately ga pamana kolan na mo de yamna dehumanizing oiba isin me amai puchte thinagi ko ising thaki pakki to kan da mo da ising je mi amanaga monda makuto tintoga haiba tare na ko sing mai makuta hair pragadi ma thakpe adaba atopa satra sing na gana du ata pair thakko da mai du yan gi da ko du magi education je Maharaja of Baroda na magi education je sponsor to bigi adu ga maze India da halaka 1917 da maze military secretary ona tabak to gi ko monda financial grant to gi bagi 1918 dagi 1920 bogna maze Sydenham College of Commerce ma ozawi ki magi cover book naya habduma launch to gi pa aduga ma kai ju taki ke hab kanda lawyer jo gi Bombay High Court aduga Badley Boys Accountancy Training Institute ma taki aduga government law college ma ozawi ki Ambedkar aduga Bahiskrit Hitkarni Sabha 1924 da man hoki aduga magi PhD thesis na The Evolution of Provincial Finance ko 1925 da published to 1930 da na ma president of All India Depressed Classes Congress ki president mo ina ma electo ki aduga ma journal Janata hai se hoki aduga Ambedkar je principal of Government Law College Bombay 1935 da ma je kahtar appoint hogi aduga chahi ani lagi India ki han da law minister ore 1947 to 1951 bokta aduga chairman of drafting committee of Indian constitution ki ko aduga ma chairman jo hoki hai batare aduga magi guru ahum Buddha Mahatma Phule amasung Sant Kabir ko bhakti poida ma si jina magi guru ne mana claim to aduga last mana Buddhism the convert to 14 October 1956 ta matum na te magi followers thousands and thousands of magi followers myam ka aduga mana finally 1957 ta ma legi de graphic novel have se kari no have se ta pin inare pa aduga Indian graphic novel ki da Amar Chitra Katha kai se yamna popular bu ka 1960s amasung 1970s la ki bani adubu during the last decade ko chahi tara homam da have tare ko comics se joyful reading dagi thought provoking exercise on all of the shift ama apina ubanga me economic liberalization na Indian graphic narratives in publication da choba mateng ama pangi have tare ko ki printed material ki availability se koi wankalakpa or the literature festival me ama likalakpa natraga celebrate torokpa marketing the distribution of books se irai larakpa have tare ko have accessible to everyone to the bimana ki kon art yaure kon art sina ki tribal art makalamani asi ki art ki forms ni apina bimana da apina thingau pangwis digna pattern yawi digna pattern na demarcation mo to digna pattern na ki page breaks in je signify to wi bimana adu ka ahan da one day da discussing class na ki bimra wi ko magi water de ho ko water na ki sing ta ko phanghan ki ta ko lang ki ta ba or da mana mahar sing je ki 1997 da Ambedkar na March toraga Mahar Satyagraha toraga chawda tekti sing thak to pa tu tu matang da irang ko ki ba ki ba pa hindu sing manga ma kui high caste hindu manga am jail da thamari ga le bu sing to yaw re sida already kui ki 2008 ta April 2008 kui kui ti me da have ta ne pa kui ki by war sing je punish to gi ba so ba ko toraga pa mo je local ponum sinaram ba ge du yaw re have di change se kya ubungam ti have mo ko ka se dum nei di shelter da na Ambedkar je ma je Baroda da gi Baroda da lakpa budbe da gi ko adu ma sanjabam tv gi taba ma je anta sebun kan pudi gi ko adu mana parsi gi idnam da sanaga mo di parsi di anta civility gum ba kai gum je observe to to ni na mo de lebi ya tra na khalu ro ka sanjab ro kan da ma ti ya halak taba o ti parsi gar na mo da phuni kaina ka mo chere ki ko mana mo gi in du mang le ka bi mo travel da ma gi si je British Ambedkar ki transforming into society na pangi adu Gandhi ki foremost priority na freedom British ki freedom pangpa abadi mo ego kana ki madu sopin pangpa samuttarji in this unit we examine sufferings and struggles of Ambedkar ki suffering and struggle of the no pange located in contemporary times the regime matam da jupa or kamaina caste ki struggles in regime matam da ju daily have to pange examine the graphic narrative appreciated born arts open appreciate and look at some of the most crucial themes touched upon in the graphic novel access to water, shelter and travel on the water, shelter and travel ki access se koi ki Ambedkar na ya wana thina ki have to ma ki struggle me am sing phangna ba shelter phangna ba amasung travel da mang da challenges me am thina ki ba ko as an anticiple du me am to pin si koi na wrap up to bunga me have ta ko next lecture da koi will be continuing ko koi bi ma na ki se duga next class ta koi makha ta na discussion makha mu ta ji ko sigi lecture ji ta koi ki gyan ta da ba ta kum ba le bi or ka di we will discuss that in the next class.